Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Carmen Pugliafito, and I'm happy to be here today with Professor Anat Loewenstein, who is director of the Ophthalmology department at Tel Aviv Medical Center. Also happens to be current president of the Israeli Ophthalmologic Society and Secretary General of the Retina. So welcome to Retina Synthesis. Welcome back.
Thank you very much, Carmen. It's a pleasure to be here.
You talked about your pioneering work in home OCT monitoring. We'd like to talk about that today. What is the current status of home OCT monitoring for the management of neovascular AMD?
So basically, the home monitoring technology is pending FDA approval. It has been shown to be effective in monitoring the fluid levels in divided to compartments, subretinal, intraretinal, and total retinal fluid in patients that are undergoing treatment for neovascular macular degeneration. We've been able to show pretty surprising even results as to the ability of older people to use and operate this technology. We found that more than 90% of the patients, albeit elderly ones, or ones that, or people that have a pretty low visual acuity, can still operate the technology and achieve gradable scans. We also were able to see that the compliance to continuous monitoring is pretty good, and that patients continue to do the test more than 5 times a week. And then we were able to show very detailed trajectories as to the fluid levels, the way it accumulates prior to treatment, and the way it's resolved post-treatment. We can identify various patterns, people in whom the fluid is resolved fast, people in whom the fluid is resolved in a much slower manner, and it really also depends on the length of exposure to the fluid. All these results show us the theoretical ability of the home OCT to give us a lot of data about the fluid levels in the patients. Currently, there are studies that are conducted both by the DRCRnet and by pharma that are going to see if to all this monitoring and the knowing exactly when the fluid starts, if it has finally an impact on visual acuity. Because for the home OCT to be operational and be adopted by our community, we need to have either a decreasing burden by lowering the number of non-injection visits, so the patient will come only when the fluid accumulates and the threshold is achieved and his physician is alerted, and he is alerted, or if we'll have a final better visual acuity because the retina will be exposed to less levels of fluid or less time of fluid, namely less fluid under the curve.
So what are the dynamics of some of the patterns that you've seen about fluid response, fluid accumulation, and fluid response, treatment response?
So it's very interesting. What we were able to see is that if the fluid exposure is longer, for example, if a patient, we have an example of patients that the fluid started to accumulate after, let's say, 5 weeks after the injection, and they were scheduled for treat and extend visit, which was, let's say, 3 weeks later. And apparently they were exposed to fluid in a too long a time. In these patients, the fluid resolution was also slower. We were also able to see that in patients that get the treatment promptly, they actually have a faster resolution of the fluid. We don't have a long follow-up yet to say how this impacts visual acuity, but definitely we can show the differences in the exposure to fluid. We also have a few patients that were already treated according to the home OCT technology. So they, at the minute the fluid started to accumulate, they were treated after 2 days. And in these patients, the resolution was much faster. what we did and what we showed is that there is really a big difference if there is a slower, if the time until the treatment is done is longer.
So early intervention seems to be valuable.
You know, Carmen, like we always say, whenever you treat earlier, almost any disease, you get better results. We know that also baseline visual acuity is the most important biomarker for better potential visual acuity outcome, and it has been shown in the CAT trial and in many trials. So also early retreatment is probably very important.
So how do you see this system be used after approval? Or how do you use it now? In Israel, you have access to it. So how do you use it to manage patients in the real world?
So actually in Israel, we only have it on research terms until now, but now we are going to do a collaboration with one of the HMOs and a pharma company that is going to look at the whole digital health model. I think, Carmen, what you asked now is a very important question, maybe the most important one, because it's not enough to have a good technology. It's not enough to have the science prove what we claim to say. We also need to think about actually looking at the whole system as a new digital health model, because you need to have 3 points of care. One is the patient. The patient needs to do a daily home OCT. The second is the monitoring center that gets all the OCTs that the patient that the system mounted on a cloud. And the monitoring center is the one to make sure that there is an alert to the physician and to the patient, and that the patient is summoned to the physician. Also, the monitoring center is responsible for providing the technology to the patient. The model is that the physician prescribes the technology to a suitable patient. It's not something you can go and buy in the supermarket. And then the monitoring center gets the prescription and sends the device to the patient. He follows him with a 1-800 number or online to show him exactly how to operate the technology. And then he monitors his compliance. And is also responsible for a very important point of reimbursement of the physician for his time. So the physician is going to be reimbursed for every patient that he has on the home OCT, and also for looking at the alert that he gets from the patients that are on the technology. And then the patient comes to the physician and it continues as per the standard of care.
So how will this be impacted by treatment approaches that have greater durability, like faricimab? How does that figure into the calculation?
Yeah, this is another excellent question. The longer the treatment interval, the more important is the home OCT, because let's say with faricimab or with 8 milligram aflibercept, we know that, let's say, 50 to 60 patients can go with a time interval of 4 months, and almost 80% can go with a time interval of 3 months, but it's not all the patients. So for each individual patient, there is a different time interval. And if you want to send your patient for 3 months without seeing them, you want them to be monitored. You don't want them to have fluids for a long time because you have a treatment that theoretically works 3 to 4 months. So the longer the treatment interval, the more important is the home monitoring.
So what about diabetic macular edema?
So we actually have some preliminary studies also looking at diabetic macular edema, because the technology can detect fluid in nanoliters, fluid volume in nanoliters in all the compartments, so subretinal and intraretinal, and theoretically it can be also important in diabetic macular edema. However, because in DME we are much more permissive for the fluid, we think that it's less of an importance, because, if a patient is called to come, let's say after a certain time, according to a treat and extend regimen, and he had intraretinal fluid for some time, it's not a disaster like it is in AMD. But definitely it will have a role once the longer acting drugs will be used. It has a great potential of that too.
Yeah, I mean, the concept of the personalized treatment interval would fit in very nicely with home OCT, because this is the ultimate way of calculating the PTI.
Absolutely. It's exactly personalized, tailored to the patient medicine. And it is also, I think it's also comes in a good time when we think that a very important thing is to have patient-centric care and that the patient takes responsibility of his treatment. It's not anymore the patriarchal medicine that we tell them what to do. They're also responsible to do the treatment, to do the tests, to monitor themselves. And I think nowadays it gets more and more attention, and many patient advocacy groups are really enthusiastic about that as well.
So what is the underlying computer technology for doing the analysis of the fluid? Is there artificial intelligence involved?
Oh yeah, absolutely. In the analysis of the fluid, there is AI involved. There is a machine learning facilitated calculation of the fluid. It's a complicated software that looks at that. I can even tell you that many of the details are within the machine learning part, and the physician is not even exposed to this. I would not say it's a black box, because we all know what we are looking for, and we all know that there is segmentation and then calculation of the fluid, but the small details are based on machine learning.
No, this has been exciting. When do you think that this will be available in the United States? Any time?
Yeah, so actually it is ready, and it's already used in pharma trials, also in the United States, and then in the DRCR-NET trial, it's going to start shortly. So the technology is available. It's just pending FDA approval. And the FDA approval takes some time because of the issue of the final outcome. The FDA wants to see some kind of final outcome after a certain follow-up that shows that there is either some kind of better visual acuity or a lowering of the burden.
What is the network trial designed to do?
The network trial is designed to compare standard of care without home monitoring to the monitoring with the home OCT, evaluating the final outcome. This is going to provide the ultimate response if it changes the final visual acuity, the number of injections, and so on. So
this is a change in the practice algorithm, in the sense that your research suggests that early treatment of fluid activation is beneficial, so that the patients need to come in at non-scheduled times.
Correct. Yeah, this will definitely require. It's an issue because we will need to change the way we are managing our practices. We will need to be able to accommodate to all these patients that come in a non-expected, in a not necessarily expected way. And I'm completely aware of this issue, and it's not the only issue. You know, whenever you're talking about AI in medicine, you have the issue of liability, the issue of regulation, the issue of reimbursement, and also the issue of our need to change the way we practice. We practice the management of our patients. But I think that these changes are feasible, and I think the way we accommodated to monthly injections in such a large number of patients, we will be able to make the changes necessary on a very clinic-to-clinic basis.
Well, this is exciting. Congratulations on all this great work, because I really
Thank you, Carmen.
I really do think you've been working on this for a while, but I do think it will be implemented, and it's very consistent with other developments in retinal pharmacotherapy in terms of increased durability, personalized treatment intervals, and
yes, and it's also consistent with the shift of in medicine in general to home monitoring and also to home treatment. You know, yes. So it's kind of consistent with and personalized medicine.
Good. Thank you for joining us from Israel, and have a good night.
Thank you very much, Carmen. Thank you for the opportunity. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Bye.